Here with us today is Eule Rico Bonganay, Secretary General of the Salinlahi Alliance for Children's Concerns. Eule, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us in your program.
Yes, so Eule, what is the difference between 15, which is the current minimum age of criminal liability, and 12, which is the one in the bill being pushed, just approved by lawmakers in fact, and 9 years old, which was the original proposal? What's the difference?
Actually, there's no much difference between 15, 12, and 9 in terms of the brain development of a child. So, because as per the 9344, it recognizes that the developmental immaturity of children mitigates their criminal culpability. Because the developmental immaturity of the child are one of the reasons why we are not for the lowering of minimum age of criminal responsibility. So there's no much difference. 12 is not acceptable for us.
But why is 15 okay?
Basically, when the law was passed, it is based on it recognizes that children at this age they have deficiencies in terms of decision-making capacities. They are very much vulnerable in coercive circumstances, and at the same time, their profile is also considered, especially those children who came from marginalized communities.
Actually, there was a psychology professor from the Ateneo de
Yes.
Manila. Her name is Lian Alampay, who
Yes.
said that there is no difference between 9,
Yes.
12, or 15. All of them are still growing in brain development
Yes.
and are still learning how to make decisions, control impulses, and
Yes.
regulate emotions. Children who are very young do not know, or do know, in fact, what
Yes,
is right
they
and
do
wrong,
know.
but
Yes.
they don't have the full capacity to behave in ways consistent with that
their
knowledge.
yes.
So, how do you make of this new law being pushed, this new bill being pushed? Why? What do you think is the motivation for lowering this age?
For the government part, they are saying that this measure will curb criminality. But for our part, this will not solve our problem in terms of children's involvement into crimes, because as of the data of the government, only 2% of the total crimes committed or documented by the government is committed by children. It's still 98% of those crimes are committed by adults. So if we focus on the crimes committed by children, it will create a very minimal impact in terms of curbing crimes right now.
Can you give us a picture? What happens now, currently at 15 years old, with the minimum criminal liability? What happens to kids when, for example, a 16-year-old is caught robbing
Yes.
a store? What happens to that child?
There are cases that these children are apprehended, by police authorities or law enforcement agencies, and because of the situation that we are lacking with Bahay Pagasas or facilities that will temporarily cater them for rehabilitation and other intervention programs, they are released automatically by the police, and there are no continuing program for them. So,
But that should not be the case,
that should not be the case, because under the RA 9344,
which is the juvenile justice.
yes, just juvenile justice and welfare law, there should be a intervention program. So, and
The
not
intervention program
should be there's the DSWD, whenever a child is apprehended by the police, they should immediately endorse this child to the DSWD, and the DSWD will determine what intervention program will be made, if it is inside the Bahay Pagasa or community-based program. So, because if the case is just a petty crime, community-based intervention program can be facilitated for this child. Oh,
But for those, for example, who are recommended for Bahay Pagasa, what is the situation in Bahay Pagasa?
right now,
How many do we have?
ideally, there should be a 114 Bahay Pag-asa to be established in one per provinces and one for highly urbanized cities. But right now, we only have 58 Bahay Pag-asa, and most of these Bahay Pag-asa do not meet the required standard of the DSWD. In fact, only 8 of these 58 Bahay Pag-asa are accredited by the DSWD. Yes, and because there's a problem with the establishment, actually for this year, 2019, the government slashed the budget of the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council by 57%. So this budget could be used in hiring more social workers, training the staffs and law enforcement agencies, and at the same time, for the establishment of more Bahay Pag-asas that will cater children.
And usually, how long do these children have to stay in Bahay Pag-asa?
They should be there
Before
for
they're
at least
released.
1 year and intervention program, but it also depends on how the social worker frame the intervention program, especially for those petty crimes. But if it is crime that with punishment of more than 6 years, at least 1 year, the children will stay in Bahay Pag-asa at least 1 year. So for children 15 and below, they are automatically released to their parents, but the intervention does not stop there. So a community-based intervention program will be given to this child in cooperation with the barangay council for the protection of children. But the problem is most of the barangays do not have this kind of council that will address the CIE's juvenile justice issue.
So technically and
technically.
legally, no child in conflict with the law should ever be sent
To jail.
to jail.
Yes, because under the law, it should
Even if
Children
they're
should-
15,
yes,
Years old.
yes, they should be
turned over
turned
to
over
Bahay
to
Pag-asa.
Bahay Pag-asa.
But is that the case?
There are cases that we receive reports that with the lack of Bahay Pag-asa, these children are sent to jail for 24 hours or more than a day,
Like a holding period.
like a holding period.
Is that
And,
okay?
No, because inside jail they will contact with hardened criminals, and if that is the case, they will learn other crimes, and it will not help them rehabilitate. Because under the juvenile justice law, it should be children should be treated in a restorative way, not punitive. So they should not be sent to jail.
How many children in conflict with the law do we have on record?
As of the data that we were able to gather, as of 2015, there are 10,000 children are recorded to have committed crimes. And as of the
What
data,
age? At what age? This
at
is
what
15.
age? 15 and above.
15 and above, okay.
And most of these children, as of the profile of the DSWD, they came from poor families. Most of them obtained a low level of education, and at the same time, they are in the community that with high rate of crime. So basically, what we see is that if we lower the minimum age of criminal responsibility, it will attack. It is a clear attack against poor families, for children from poor families. So
The 10,000 on record, Eule, is that the latest number that we have?
according to the government, but it's for verification.
But they were using a different
Yes,
number.
they're
in the
using
recent
the
days. 66,000?
66,000. They're saying that there are 66,000. And
Was that a factor of reporting styles, or
maybe
that was the big jump?
Maybe.
That's times
Yes,
6.
maybe we can consider that they are intensifying the monitoring mechanism. They're strengthening the monitoring mechanism and they have this kind of data. But I think we should verify this, and at the same time verify the premise that they are saying now that these children are being used by syndicates. Because if we debate
That's
on
the
that,
worry.
if we debate on that kind of premise, lowering is not the solution.
What is the solution?
The solution is if the government is really serious in combating crimes, they should run after the syndicates, not the children. Especially they should consider that these children are also victims of circumstances. So punishing them and condemning them inside jail will
But
not
going
resolve.
after the children seems to be the low-hanging fruit, the easier solution.
Yes, for them it's a shortcut. method. It's a band-aid solution.
What about the parents? What accountability will the parents have?
Under the law, the accountability is they should be also. Actually, there are already existing law on including the RA 7610 that if there's a punishment for parents who neglect their children. So what we need to do is to strengthen it, and at the same time, developmental programs should be also given to them. Yeah.
Eule, we don't have much time. Very quickly, number one, what happens to the records of these kids who enter Bahay Pagasa? Will that be forever in their records? So when they try to enroll in schools, the school will see it and will have the option to say, maybe
No,
you're not for
they
us.
should not use it.
This should not be in their records.
Yeah,
so
it
when
should
they
be.
look for jobs eventually, this
No,
should not be there.
They should not be.
Okay.
Yeah.